Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for my presentation on the spatiotemporal dynamics of information processing and exchange across the multiple domain network. Multiple domain network is a set of brain regions across parietal, frontal, and medial-frontal cortices, where information is encoded across a wide variety of tasks, such as word discrimination, maths, working memory, and stroke. And information processing across this network is very flexible and it often changes with perceptual difficulty of the stimuli. However, the temporal dynamics of information processing across the multiple domain network is unclear, and that is because most of the studies use fMRI, which has a poor temporal resolution. This network has been suggested to support human cognition by connecting different modules of the brain. However, there is no clear evidence on information transfer across the multiple domain network to support that hypothesis. So in order to cover these two issues, we designed a study in which participants were trained to discriminate visual stimuli, which were presented on the screen. So we had 4 different stimuli, and participants had 4 buttons to press. And depending on the rule, which were indicated by the color of the fixation square, had to choose one of the buttons to press. And the mappings between the buttons and the stimuli were called rules in this study. You can see the structure of a single trial here, in which one rule was cued on each trial and a single stimulus was presented. Using multivariate pattern analysis, we decoded 4 aspects of the task from the data from MEG as well as fMRI. The first aspect was coarse stimulus information, which refers to discriminating right versus left stimuli. The second aspect of the information is the fine stimulus information, which refers to inner versus outer stimuli. Rule information was the third aspect, which we decoded from brain data, which refers to the discrimination between rule 1 versus rule 2. And response information, which refers to the discrimination between button presses using the middle fingers versus the outer fingers. So fMRI decoding results showed the domination of coarse stimulus information in early visual areas, as well as lateral occipital cortex, up and above the fine stimulus information, which was hard to discriminate for the participants. However, this trend was swapped across the multiple domain network, as you can see in these 4 regions. Rule information was also present across a wide variety of regions, including the visual areas as well as multiple domain network. And response information only reached significance in IPS area of the multiple domain network. We also decoded the same 4 aspects of information from MEG data and saw that coarse stimulus information dominated fine stimulus information right after the stimulus onset. However, the trend was swapped, and you can see that fine stimulus information dominated the coarse stimulus information right before the response. Rule and response information were more dominant right before or around the response time. Although these 2 separate modalities are informative about where and when information is processed in the brain, however, they cannot provide information when and where information is processed in the brain. So we needed to fuse the 2 modalities, and for that purpose, we fused the 2 modalities using representational similarity analysis, where we extracted representational dissimilarity matrices from fMRI, every region of interest, MEG from every time point, and we incorporated models which defined what aspect of information we were trying to correlate between the 2 modalities. So we obtained commonality indices, which refers to the time points in the regions where the 2 modalities correlated with one another. As in the original study which developed this method, using this method, you can see the time course of courses of information across different regions and see at what time point they reach their maximum values to obtain insight about potential precedence of information processing from region to another, from one region to another. So we developed 4 different representational dissimilarity matrices for the 4 different aspects of information. And what we obtained was the time courses of commonality, which you can see here for the coarse stimulus information. You can see that there seems to be some gradual appearance of information from the posterior parts of the brain to anterior parts of the brain. And these are reflected in the peak times of these time courses. The same observation was made for rule information aligned to the time of the response, with information appearing in posterior brain areas followed by anterior brain areas. Also, we saw the same pattern for fine stimulus information, with information appearing in posterior brain areas followed by anterior brain areas. And for response information, we observed that the latest area, the last region which showed the response information was the IPS area. Although these results seem to suggest some sort of information transfer between areas, we need to quantify whether there is any information transfer between areas or not. And in order to do that, we built on the recent shift towards multivariate connectivity analysis, which has been dominating the field. So we use the commonality indices in our novel method to see if there is any range causal relationship between the time courses of commonality between one region to another, to obtain information about potential connectivity between areas. So you can see here that we have evaluated information transfer from any source area to any destination area. So we have all our 6 regions of interests, and we checked whether there was any information transfer from source area to destination area for the 4 aspects of information which we were interested in, along to the stimulus onset time and response time. And you can see the significance of the connectivities between areas, with red boxes showing significance. And what we observed are summarized in these brain plots here on the right. You can see that coarse stimulus information never showed any significant connectivity across the visual LOC and the multiple domain network. However, fine stimulus information, we saw circulation of information across within the multiple domain network, and so many top-down connections from multiple domain network to visual areas, potentially to improve the representations of fine stimulus information, which was perceptually challenging to participants. And also, you can see the clear contribution from the ACC area. For rule information, also, you can see that there is clear inputs to the ACC area, which seems to be playing a major part in processing the rules in the brain. And response information also shows a clear role for the ACC area, with many connections and starting or ending at the ACC area. So you can see that different types of information show different kind of connections and different timings of information. So in order to conclude, we can use fMRI and MEG fusion and connectivity to provide insight about both when and where information is processed in the brain. So we observed sequential appearance of coarse and fine stimulus information from posterior visual to frontal multiple domain areas. Rule information also followed the same pattern, starting from IPS, IFS, and followed in ACC area. Response information peaked latest and largest at IPS, 100 milliseconds before the response. And there are significant, based on the connectivity analysis, there were significant bottom-up from and top-down information flows to visual areas for fine stimulus information. after the stimulus onset, along with circulation of information within the multiple domain network. Final stimulus information is mainly feed-forward, reaching the ACC area around the response time. And the response information is dominantly received by ACC around the stimulus onset time and fed back around the response time. So we can conclude that the temporal dynamics of information processing across the multiple domain network suggest that different nodes of the network play differential roles in the processing of information across different time windows of the trial. And you could see that not all the nodes play the same or equal part in transferring information across the multiple domain network and across the brain. So we can use the novel informational connectivity analysis, which is based on fusion, to obtain more information about how different nodes of the brain connect to one another and transfer information. I'd like to finally thank you for your attention and my collaborators for their contributions to this work. Thank you.